Hello, Gatewayers. I'm going to introduce our new project that we're going to be doing for the next 3 weeks. I know we said initially that we were going to do projects that were created by the students, but sometimes things happen. And something that happened very recently was Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian hit Florida, and it was one of the worst hurricanes that we've had in the 21st century. It was a Category 4, which is a pretty serious hurricane, and it's been the deadliest. I think there's 96 people who have died as a result of the hurricane, and which is one of the highest totals since 1935, where there was the Labor Day hurricane. In addition to loss of human lives, there was widespread destruction. There was loss of habitats for animals. There's all sorts of things that happened because this hurricane made landfall in Florida. And so we wanted to create a project that allowed you to figure out a way to help, not just those who are affected by Hurricane Ian, but how do we help people in the future? How do we, when these happen again, and undoubtedly they're going to happen again, how can we better be prepared for them? So I'm going to give you 4 options that you can choose from, that you can work on during this 3 weeks. So option number 1 is simply what causes a hurricane in the first place. And on average, there's 7 hurricanes that hit the United States. And every 4 years, there's about 3 major ones every 5 years. And so the question becomes, what causes them? What causes them, one, to be more severe than others? Why in recent years have there been more damage from hurricanes than there have in years past? And so those are the kind of the questions you're going to look at. And so the 3 essential questions that you're going to be considering are, what causes a hurricane? So you would research and learn what conditions have to be in place in order for a hurricane to happen. Number 2 is, what are the rating of hurricanes and what weather conditions must exist to make one stronger than another? So one may be a Category 4, maybe a Category 2. What is the difference between those? What weather patterns cause one to be more severe than another? And then lastly, what is the period of or pattern of hurricanes in the United States over the last 10 or 20 years? When we look at the destruction that was caused by hurricanes such as Hurricane Katrina, which was in 2005, and then we had Hurricane Harvey, which was in 2017. We had Ida just last year in 2021. And so looking at these hurricanes and trying to see a pattern here. So your deliverable, or what you need to produce to show what you learned, is to create a reenactment of Hurricane Ian. Including how it came to form, the path it took, what caused it to be rated the way it was. And so you can do this in several ways. And so it's up to you. But some suggestions are, you could create a comic book that shows the eventual development and destruction it caused. Could be stop motion animation, since that's fresh for you, for some of you. It could be a simulation of some sort. You could do it animated, whatever you choose. But you're going to show how hurricanes work so that we can figure out how to best, if we see these weather patterns coming up, we know to prepare for the worst. There is a bonus opportunity for this one, as there are for all of the projects. And the bonus opportunity is, try to predict where the next big hurricane will occur. But make sure you're not just predicting based off of, just thoughts that you have, but through the research you did, where have we seen an influx of hurricanes? Where have we seen that rise? So that's option number 1 that you could choose from. Option number 2 is, if you looked at any of the photos from Hurricane Ian, you'll notice that there is some structure standing right next to a structure that was destroyed. You'll notice the bridge to Sanibel Island, which was one of the places that was hit pretty hard, is torn up in places. And yet there are other parts of the island that are completely intact. And so the big question here is, or the big idea here is, why do some of these buildings become destroyed? And why do some remain unscathed? So is there something in their engineering? Is there something in their design? Is there something in the way that it is set up or the way it was built or the materials used that cause some structures to be more hurricane proof than others? And so the three questions, essential questions that you're going to be looking at here is, how does a hurricane cause damage in the first place? Because we think of the obvious, which is that it's going to knock over a building or destroy a building. But what we don't think about is, even if the building is left standing, there might be mold from the water that came through. There could be animals in your house that weren't there before because the hurricane blew them in there. And so there's all sorts of things to consider damage rather than just the immediate damage. What is the damage after the hurricane as well? The second question is, what causes one structure to be able to withstand the destruction of a hurricane and another does not? Are there differences between these? And if there are differences, what can we be doing a better job of in the construction of these structures to help so if a hurricane is going to hit? And then finally, are there certain engineering decisions that can be made that is going to protect a structure from a hurricane? So when they're rebuilding in Florida, can they rebuild with some ideas, engineering ideas that you develop or that have been developed that you find, that you suggest, that is going to make that structure even more sturdy? So all sorts of possible, your deliverable is you're going to create a model or design of a structure and what you've done engineering wise specifically to help with the the avoidance of a hurricane. Not avoiding the hurricane, but how to help when the hurricane hits. And so you could do sketches of this. You could do a 3D model online. You could do a 3D model with Legos, with clay, with popsicle sticks, whatever. So, but your end result is to show us a structure that's able to withstand a hurricane. Now, if you want to take a bonus opportunity here would be figuring out the cost. So when you make these suggestions, does this make a structure more expensive? Because that may prevent some people from using these engineering designs, is that they're way more expensive, then they're not going to build using these. And so what are the costs of these as compared to cost of, say, regular homes that are being built in Florida? Option number 3. This one is, how do we help the animals of Florida? When a hurricane hits, sure, there's a lot of animals that die in the process, whether they are swept out to sea, whether they are, they drown, all sorts of things. However, there are also animals that are left that have their habitats that have been destroyed, or they've been moved completely from their habitat, or they've been put into an unfamiliar habitat. And so how do we help the animals that live in the areas that are affected by a hurricane, such as Hurricane Ian? And so some of the essential questions that you're going to look at is, how are animals affected by hurricanes? Not just directly, not just short term, but what about long term? How are animals affected? So will there be different migrations because of Hurricane Ian? Will there be different places that used to have animals maybe not have them anymore because they got blown away? So that would be something that you would research. The second question is, how are their habitats and homes affected? So not just the animals themselves, but like if they live in a tree and that tree's destroyed, what happens? If they live in a area and they get blown, 10 miles away, that's a big difference in that habitat. The habitat may be completely different depending upon what happens there. A third question is, what can be done to protect animals in the event of a hurricane? Not just from Hurricane Ian, because we can't do anything right anymore because it already occurred. We can help with the after effects, but what can be done beforehand to help protect animals from a hurricane? So your deliverable is that, or your product is that you're going to develop a plan that you will pitch to Wildlife and Refuge Department. And this plan is going to be used to protect habitats of animals affected by hurricanes, as well as how can we protect the animals themselves. And so you can do this as a Google slide, you could do it as a wee video, you could do it as a pamphlet, a poster. It doesn't have to be a presentation, a spoken presentation, although it can be a spoken presentation. But this is something that the Wildlife and Refuge Department could use to develop a plan for how to better help these animals. If you want to take a bonus opportunity, you can figure out a way to help people right now in Florida that are affected, and the animal services that already exist in Florida, because they're helping animals just as they're helping the humans. And so what can be done to help them right now? Option number 4. Option number 4 is, obviously there's the loss of human life, but there's the loss of structures. I have a friend that lives on Sanibel Island, and her house was destroyed and everything that was in it she lost. And so she's going to have to pick up the pieces and figure out what she's going to do. And so there are short-term effects of a hurricane, and then there are long-term effects. So this is going to cost people money because insurance premiums are going to go up. And so the question becomes, how can we help the people that are affected by something like Hurricane Ian? And so the first essential question you want to address is, how have people been affected? So it's not just loss of life. There are other ways that people have been affected as well. And what are short-term ones and what are long-term ones? The second thing you want to look at is, there's already being a lot of stuff done. There's billions of dollars being earmarked for the people in Florida to help pick up the pieces. And so what efforts are already being made and to help people to do that, to help people get their lives back to the way they were? So just understand what those efforts are. And then how can you yourself, your group, help those who are affected by a hurricane? Do you partner with one of these organizations and provide things that they are asking for? And so your deliverable is that you're going to come up with some kind of aid. And this is not an idea. This is not a plan. You're actually going to do this. You are going to be creating, either raising money and giving it to an organization that helps people in Florida. You may be gathering materials and shipping them down to Florida, the people that need them. But you're going to be looking at what organizations are doing and how you can assist those organizations. Because if you just raise money and send it down to Florida, they're not going to know where to put that money or who that money goes to or whatever. So you want to partner with an organization. So that's why it's really important to research what is already going on. And so some possible ideas, again, is that you partner with an organization, you help them raise money. Could be that you roll out a school-wide effort to provide help rather than just the people on Gateway or the people in your room. If you want a bonus opportunity, you can figure out a way to involve the community, Pickerington, Columbus, the state of Ohio, as far as you want to take it. How do you involve others in the community in order to help with this? So those are your 4 options. Just to review real quick, option number 1 is looking at hurricanes themselves. What causes them? What patterns have to occur for them to happen? And are there ways that we can look out for these patterns or to prevent these patterns? Option number 2, why do some structures survive while others do not? So what engineering principles are being used? How are they building these so that they're withstanding a hurricane while other ones do not? Option number 3, how are animals affected by a hurricane? And how can we help preserve the animal habitat and the animals themselves in future hurricanes, as well as helping those who are affected by Hurricane Ian? And lastly, how can we help the people of Florida pick up the pieces? How can we help them to put their life back together? Are there things that we specifically could be doing in order for that to happen? So you're going to choose one of those and your top 2, and we're going to put you in groups and you're going to get to work on that. But good luck with that, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.